Good morning, New Vision Center. I'm Reverend Leslie. I'm the Associate Minister here. It's so lovely to be with you. It's so lovely to be with you on the online campus as well. What a great song to represent our annual theme. As you probably know, our annual theme this year is the seeds of love, as in planting the seeds of love, harvesting the seeds of love, nurturing the seeds of love within ourselves, within this community, and on the planet. And unless you have been living in a cave for the last couple of months, our seeds are pretty needed right now, right? I know, it feels like an understatement. There's so much going on, and over again, I'm sure Reverend Karen and Reverend Jeff and Reverend Lori and every person doing this work on the planet have been hearing, can it be done now? There's a TikTok trend that sums it up really nicely, where it goes something like this: "Dear that which hasn't killed me, go away. I don't want any more character development. I'm finished now. I want a nap." And we feel like that, don't we? Oh, whatever it is that has been most pulling on your heart, be it the ongoing war in Ukraine, all of the wildly different changes that are coming out of the Supreme Court, the changing COVID numbers, disease, illness, things going on in our individual families, people making their transition. There's a lot that is up. There's a lot that is up. And while we know that here we come together at New Vision Center and places like this all over the planet to get in alignment and know how to move forward powerfully and make a change on this earth with our energy and our actions and our intentions, right? That's what we're here to do. At the same time, sometimes when the pile starts coming in, we just kind of want to crawl into the cave and hide. This is my cave. Reverend Karen and I have a deal. Only one of us can live in the cave at a time. We have to tag team it. The other one has to come out when it's time to go in the cave. Lately, it feels like the United States of America wants to go in the cave. There's not enough room in the cave. Somebody said to me about 2 weeks ago, it feels like a hurricane wind is blowing at me and it just won't stop. Every time I start to feel a little bit better, a little bit calmer, here comes the next big wind. And it brought to mind for me an essay by Reverend Dennis Merritt Jones, who's a light in our movement. He's a well-known minister and writer. And it brought this title up, this title of our talk today, Blow, Wind, Blow. And he was writing about the Biosphere 2 project, which you might remember because it was here in Arizona, right? So they built a dome, a biosphere dome, with the intention to create a perfect environment. And they had a couple people, scientists were living in the dome, and you committed to live there for years without opening the dome. And they had everything that was needed for perfect growth, for growing their own plants, for absolutely pure water, everything that could be needed. And after a while, they started realizing they had obviously miscalculated something, because the vegetables grew beautifully, the fruits grew beautifully, the trees grew beautifully until they hit a certain height and they fell over. Tree after tree, different species, different styles, did the same thing. They grew to a certain height and then they just toppled over. And the scientists were baffled. Here we have some of the greatest minds in the world in this dome, not understanding what happened to these trees. Now, there are lots of tree metaphors. We know them, right? We know that you must bend in the wind like the willow tree because the flexible tree does not blow over. Well, these trees were plenty flexible. This wasn't the problem. They just fell. And with research, they discovered that what was happening is they forgot to factor in wind. They forgot to bring in big fans. Now, anybody who has grown anything indoors in the last 10, 15 years knows that the growers, the greenhouse folks know to bring in a fan, that the plants need a fan, Because if they don't have something to push against, the stems don't grow strong enough, and eventually the fruit or the seeds at the top of the plant will topple the plant. And this became very obvious. That's what was going on with these trees. They didn't have enough wind. And so this comes to mind as I'm talking to this beloved about how she's done with the wind. She doesn't want any more wind. And into my mind comes the voice of our very own Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of this teaching, who loved to study everything there was to study on the planet. It was his thing. Dude was a nerd like me. Loved to study. And he was fond of saying, I'm going to paraphrase it because he said it a lot of different ways, we've learned everything we must learn from pain. We've evolved beyond the point where we must be in pain to learn. But man, is it a good teacher. Boy, does it help. And so when I say blow, wind, blow, I am thinking of us as trees. We are the trees. The wind is blowing, the wind of war, the wind of pain, the wind of seeming subjugation, the wind of loss of freedom, temporary though it may be. The wind of loss of loved ones from our physical presence. It is blowing, it is blowing, it is blowing. Where can we find the good in the tempest? How can we learn from the trees to make the very most we can for ourselves and our lives in the midst of this hurricane? If we're going to talk about how we are the trees, I think the first thing we have to talk about is the roots, because that's what was going on in biosphere. With no wind pushing, these trees sent out nice little webs of roots all around. But because everything they needed was right in the very topsoil, because it had been constructed to be so, they didn't send roots down. They didn't need to. Everything they needed was in that topsoil. So a smart tree, a smart person, will get the easiest source of their nutrients possible, right? I mean, if you have the option to be in terrible pain and difficulty, or it all gets handed to you in a nice little basket with a bow, which one are you going to pick? So the trees, they used up that beautiful, rich topsoil that had been provided for them, and they didn't send down taproots. And consistently, we find that is true. And we can be the same way. Now, in this metaphor that I'm going to just take complete and ridiculous advantage of during this talk, in this metaphor, the deep roots represent spiritual practice and connectedness with the one, with the energy of the one. If we think we can do it all our own self with our own human mind and our own awareness and our own really good psychology, because we're clever, right? We know stuff. We're good. We've read a couple books. We can figure it out. If we try to do it on our own, we're sending our roots out very shallowly in the easy-to-access topsoil. And that works really well until something big hits. And when the something big hits, we have got to find something to anchor us deeper than our own human awareness. Without the wind, there's no need to anchor. And that's so true for us. We won't do it unless we must. But when we do, when we respond to that push from the universe, not by running and hiding, but by standing our ground and deciding to use everything in our availability, by sending that taproot deep, by choosing to take advantage of any possible means we can to connect with the God of our understanding. Be that meditation, be that prayer, be that contemplation, be that communion with wise counsel, with beloveds who believe the same thing that help set us right on our path. Again, those roots go in deeper and deeper and deeper. And we begin to do something that can seem like a dirty word. It can seem like something we were like, oh, I don't know if I want to go there. I'll whisper it in case it's stressful. Surrender. I know, it's scary. We start to surrender into that which is greater than we are. The deeper our roots go into the depth of the truth, the harder it is to push. Think about it. Topsoil, everyday life, is crumbly, it's soft. You can push through it easily. You can take a finger and stick it right down in there and plant a seed. And then we get into the more silty layer. It's a little harder, maybe both hands. Got to kind of give some force there. And then we hit clay. And then we hit clay. And some of us will go get a trowel. Good pointy one, right? Keep at it. And some of us go, I don't want to meditate, it's too hard. Can't do it, it's too hard. And I don't say that to minimize, because y'all, sometimes, especially when the wind is a-blowing and we are upset and it's hard to decide to continue to refocus and put our attention where we know it needs to be so that our root can go as deep as possible and stabilize us and protect us from the force of these gales that come. But nothing will keep us upright except that deep tap root. Nothing. Stakes don't work. Boy, the biosphere scientists, they tried everything short of standing there and holding it all day, every day, which didn't work either because they took naps. Those trees were going to come down if they didn't grow their tap root. And we are the same. If we don't have a deepened, connected place that goes all the way down to the center of our being, so far in that it touches the heart of God indwelling, when the wind blows, we will fall. We do fall. Now, the beautiful thing is, in a community like this, we've got 15 people. They're ready to catch us and whip us back up. But if we want to be someone who's available to help the next person when they stumble, we must make it a priority to send our roots down as deep as they can possibly go. And when we hit what we feel is impenetrable layer of bedrock, what do? We stay in it and we push deeper. We push deeper. Ernest Holmes said it like this: the tree expects nutriment and sends its roots ever searching expectantly for it. People, on the contrary, think up all the reasons why they cannot get a sufficient supply. In the professional world of science of mind, we call that arguing for our limitations. Maybe you've heard us mention this. Arguing for our own limitations. I can't meditate, it's hard. Oh, I don't have time. My schedule changed and I used to have time, but now I don't have time. We get to be right. We get to be right. However we define our experience, we get to be right. However, we also get to harvest the outcome of our tilling the soil. If we allow ourselves to be distracted from sending down those tap roots, from sending those webs far and wide and as deep as we can, then we don't get to be surprised if we fall over easily. Beautifully, we are perennial trees. We're not annuals. We don't just get one shot at this. And every day, every hour, every minute, we get to re-decide. How deep am I pushing my taproot today? So then we move to the trunk. Now we know about the trunk of these trees that if you don't have enough wind, they don't get wide enough to be strong. And if they don't have some wind, they don't learn to be flexible. It's this balance between strength and flexibility that as humans we would call resilience. We are like the trees in that we seek to be resilient. We know the wind will blow. We're humans, right? We never promised that being in science of mind would mean nothing bad would ever happen. What we promise is that if you work it, you will be able to withstand what comes and come back even stronger over and over. That's the heart of this teaching. So The wind blows and we become stronger. The wind blows and we become more flexible. And over, the pairing of that allows us to be the kind of people that can handle whatever comes. But there's more than that. There's something alchemical, magical almost, that happens in the wood of a tree that has withstood over many years much wind. It grows differently. It grows structurally differently. Scientifically, you can see it. The cellulose and the lignin form differently within the wood and create something that they call stress wood or resilience wood. This wood behaves differently. Stress wood can actually sense where the light is, not the leaves, the wood, and turn the tree to receive the best nutrients, to be able to resist the wind better, to be able to send out another root to find water way over there. It knows. Why does it know? Because it's had to. We get smarter and we learn how to take care of ourselves through the stresses. We become structurally, alchemically different, better, kinder to ourselves, and more willing to claim what we need to thrive. In the Middle Ages, there was a period of time that due to a natural disaster for over 100 years, there was significantly less light and significantly lower temperatures through all of Europe. It's well documented. You can see it in strata layers. The plants died off, animals were less, forests died, and the trees that did grow during that period of time grew much more slowly, much more stress wood in these trees. Why do we know this? Those forests don't exist anymore. That was 700 years ago, 600 years ago. Those forests don't exist anymore. But we have evidence. We have very clear and undisputable evidence of why that wood was different, because it exists in the form of Stradivarius violins. The wood that was cut for those violins resonates differently than any new violin in the last several hundred years. Why? The wood itself was different because it is stress wood, 100% stress wood from a time when that was the only way to live. And yet it creates the most beautiful string music ever created and likely that ever will be created. Because there is something beautiful that comes out of us that only emerges when we have tapped all the way in to the truth of ourselves and used that, all that nutrient that comes up from the taproot to support our growth, whatever comes. Whatever comes. And when we can do that, the beauty that emerges is so resonant that people sob. Whole thousands of people-filled music auditoriums are moved to the point of not even understanding why they're so called forth by these cells that survived hundreds and hundreds of years ago. We don't have to learn through pain. We don't have to grow through pain. But oh, we sure can. In a way that is inherently different than any other kind of growth. And then this brings us to the canopy. The big branches and the green leaves and the fruit and the seeds and the nuts that grow and are the homes for little squirrels. I do love a little squirrel. And this is what we see, right? In Science of Mind, we talk a lot about that's the effect. That's the result. That's the effect. The canopy is the effect. In our lives, our manifest life is the effect. Our relationships and our jobs and our hair and our being here on a Sunday morning, those are our effects. And that's what we look to see how we're doing, right? I mean, that's definitely what when I wake up and I'm in pain or I'm sad, it pulls all of my attention, because my canopy is not doing well that particular day. It represents what we are doing, what we have accomplished, what we can do and be and accomplished. Our canopy. It shows us how we have been creative, new ways to overcome, new ways to explore what we can create together. The center is a canopy. Look at the beautiful ways we stand in support of our fellow beloveds, of our communities who have been feeling disenfranchised, pushed against, how we've stood for our women, how we have stood for our LGBTQIA community, how we've stood for our beloveds of color, how we invite every person who is feeling challenged in and support them right where they are. This beautiful candle lighting ceremony invites each person in right where they're at. Every single one of us is standing in the middle of a windstorm of some kind all the time. And we may never even know, but the canopy holds us together. But there's a myth about the canopy that I think it's time to dispel. The myth about the canopy is that, picture in your mind the tree of life, right? We've got the big, beautiful canopy of branches, and then we've got the roots, and they're a mirror image. Can you see it in your mind? We've all seen that picture. And for many, many years, they believed that the root spread mimicked the canopy, that the canopy could not outgrow the roots, and the roots could not outgrow the canopy. They were wrong. They were really wrong. The root spread is 2 to 5 times bigger than the canopy. Always. Let's see that picture of the ratio. This is what it really looks like. However big that canopy is, the roots are up to 5 times larger and broader than that canopy. This is a little drawing that a bioscientist created that I thought was awfully cute, showing the ratio. And so when we look at the canopy of our own individual life, if we are not pleased by the scope and breadth and color and richness and diversity of our own personal canopy, we have a tendency to poke the apple, right? My tree is not vibrant enough. I will move this leaf to here. I will move from this job to that job. I will break up with that boy and date that girl. I will change my canopy. I don't know if you've ever pulled a leaf off a tree and tried to stick it somewhere else, but it probably didn't work out so very well. We want to rearrange our world of effects and have it change and have that change stick. But effect, results, is not where real change happens. Real change happens at the place of cause. Real change happens at the place of consciousness. And where is consciousness? Is it up in the leaves with the apples and the squirrels? Is it even in the trunk? That beautiful, resilient trunk? It's not. It's in the roots. It's in the depth of the roots. If you feel limited, stuck, like you haven't done what you want to do with your life, if the wind is blowing so hard that it feels like it's going to strip all your leaves right off and leave you alone in the treetops, sitting in the treetops and lamenting the wind does us no good. What we must do is turn around and focus back in on where? The roots. The roots and the surrender into spirit, into the one place we actually can make a specific, significant difference, which is turning back into that spiritual practice, sinking that taproot even deeper, spreading that net ever wider, and then trusting that the intuition that comes up through those roots will tell us what behaviors, what thoughts, what actions will actually improve our canopy. Oh, our sweet Ernest Holmes said in his pamphlet, Questions and Answers, each day, without fail, give time to meditation. Sit quietly. This is vitally important. Persevere until your word returns to you bearing the fruits of its seed. It's vitally important every day in contemplation and connection with the God of your understanding, your personal connection place that's different than anybody else's. And when the nutrients come up that taproot, it will be uniquely for you, for your life, for your behavior, for your choices, for your guidance. Reverend Karen says there's 100% guarantee, and I am right there with her. This is the path to be healthy trees, and we can do it together. Are we in?
Yes.
Beautiful. Let us take this into prayer. I invite the ministers in service and the practitioners and practitioner students to rise right where we are as we hold this word in deepened consciousness and prayer. So good it is to know that in this sacred soil of our consciousness, there is more than enough nutrient for everyone, more than enough God, Spirit, universal understanding, more than enough wisdom and abundance, more than enough unconditional love to be pulled into the truth of our own being. How beautiful it is to know that as we surrender over the problems of our world of effects, our debt, our illness, our pain, our fear, our concern, that we are gifted back solutions that are steeped in infinite wisdom, that we are healed right where we are, and that there is more than enough of this healing to heal the entire planet and have healing left over. And so we hold ourselves in the place of high knowing for everyone everywhere that this healing is right where we are, and it is powerfully good. And so it is.